teachers of Reddit. What student will you never forget? Teaching ESL in Taiwan, I joked with a young student and told him I was hungry. Not knowing I speak Chinese, he responded with Kai Da Bean, which translates to eat sh*t. I was getting my middle school certification in my state. This was maybe 3 to 4 years ago, and my college would place us in local schools in the area to partner with an accomplished teacher and get our observation hours in. The college had a reputation of putting male teacher candidates in the roughest schools in the area. Me and my fellow male students had a theory about this, but of course we couldn't prove it. Anyway, my first morning there, in a very rough all-boys middle school in the worst part of the city. First period, a little boy maybe 10 to 11 walks into class, looks at me, and says, "What are you looking at, you Ryan Gosling looking motherfucker?" I was utterly speechless. Lol. I can only assume that was his catch-all term for white men. Lol. I'll definitely never forget him. Ha 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 ha. I'm a speech therapist, so I work with the students who have disabilities or special needs. One of my students started with me in kindergarten. Let's call him Frankie. He had autism and just a tiny bit of language and a lot of behaviors, but something about him I absolutely loved. He walked like an old man and had a mop of blonde hair. I adored him, even though a lot of the other staff classified him as a difficult kid. He had a difficult home life and unsupportive parents, which made his behaviors a lot worse, but he never had them with me. As he got older, he had more outbursts and tantrums, but they would always call me over to calm him down. When COVID hit, Frankie's parents weren't able to get him onto the computer to do remote learning, and I left to work at a different school in September, so I never got to say goodbye to him. I know he's probably doing okay this year, but it breaks my heart that I can't be the one to be there for him anymore, and I just hope he understands why I'm not there. A wonderful young man who was killed in a car accident back in early June 2020. He was in his grade 11 year. Took him under my wing in grade 9. Worked on his impulsive behavior, colorful language, anger management and questionable life choices. By grade 10, he was a mentor to incoming grade 9s that had similar issues as himself. In grade 11, he was a leader here in the school, volunteering, joined the arts community, and held down 2 after-school jobs. We shook hands every day. He'd bring me coffee. His last text to me said, "Life is beautiful, man," and he had recently told me that he wished that I was his dad. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt coming home from one of those jobs. He was killed instantly after being ejected from a car he was a passenger in. My commute to and from work every day passes by the exact spot he was killed. Miss you, Edward. I teach at a prison. The first inmate I had graduate under my teaching cried when he looked at his diploma. He was the first in his entire family to graduate. It was quite the accomplishment, and I was very moved. Semicolon. Edit. Thanks for all the awards. This kid J, 10 years old with a learning disability, was struggling at home, divorce/living with grandma, and at school. It was my first year teaching, and he would often lash out to get attention and be purposely annoying to see if he could get a rise out of me. Pretty soon it became clear that he was just lonely and isolated, so he needed a friend. After getting to know him for a couple of weeks, I was happy to become his friend that year, and he and I became so close that he would bend over backwards trying to catch up on work just so he could hang out with me. I saw him struggle pretty heavily, even with one-on-one support, but apart from a couple of moments of crisis, he kept his nose to the grindstone and worked hard every day. This isn't a movie, so he still wasn't the best student in the class, but he made so much progress compared to the beginning of the year that every time I even thought about calling out or taking it easy, either Jay needs me, and he did. At my school, we get a lot of refugees from the Middle East and South Asia. I had a student, Iraqi, talk to me about her trip over. They fled when IS was starting to take over their city. Her father stayed behind to help others get out. They got a notice that he was being held ransom a few days later. They paid the ransom and in return were sent an image of his headless body. She was an incredibly happy, jovial young woman. I can't even imagine what kid of pain she must have went through. I heard many stories of fleeing war and strife, but that one was probably the worst for me. Big Mike. I'm a HS science teacher in an affluent suburb. We get this transfer kid in who is about 6 feet 8 inches, 350, long thin Hulk Hogan mullet, not bald though, and big glasses. Mike hailed from the hollers of Kentucky, thick southern accent, and was the most quotable kid I ever met. I hate books, Mr. XXXXX, they piss me off. My grandma made me sleep on the porch because she cooked some veggies, and I told her, dang it woman, where's the meat? I ain't never seen a pencil like this. Can I keep this and show my dad? Talking about a regular mechanical pencil. They threw me out of Golden Corral because I ate 8 of the steaks they had. I was pissed. Next time I'm trying for 9. And we were supposed to have a fire drill at like 1:55 or some odd time. At 1:57 he went ahead and pulled it, honest to God, thinking he would help out whoever forgot. I had a kid, 16, total addict, alcoholic, meth, pills, heroin, really rough childhood. Started smoking crack with his dad at 13, stepdad committed suicide in front of him at 14, unimaginable shit in between. He'd come to school high or drunk, and we would send him home. Nice kid, always respectful and just had a good soul. One day he was all sorts of messed up, and I pulled him out of class. I told him that I loved him, and I was worried, and if he kept this up he would more than likely be dead by 30. He freaked out, and ran to the principal's office, and complained that I had just told him that I loved him, and cared about him. Principal said, well, maybe he loves you, and cares about you. We kicked him out of school, after we had to. He got sober. He came back to track me down. He grabbed me and started sobbing. He said when I said I loved him, it was the first time an adult had said that to him, and he believed it. He has stayed sober for years, went to college, and is doing really well as a nurse now. Dance instructor. Student had one hemisphere of her brain removed as an infant, and she was paralyzed on one side. She said that she wanted to dance because she wanted people to see that she wasn't ashamed of her body. After months and months she finally managed one spin around. The other instructor cried, I cried, she cried. It was fucking incredible. I had a junior, 16 years old, in my high school science course last year peel the strip of metal off the side of a ruler and proceed to stick each end of it into an outlet and shock himself. I saw the sparks out of the corner of my eye and he jumped up, and his arm was in some significant pain. He said he did it because he wanted to see what would happen. Scientific method in action, I guess. I will never forget that dumbus. Edited to shocked because he didn't actually die. Thanks for the heads up. I taught sculpture and mask making at an arts summer camp years back. One of the projects was drawing a creature and then carving a 3D version of it out of a block of foam to paint and decorate. All the students nailed it, except one, a boy around 9, didn't get it. I sat with him and went over it many times. He didn't understand the concept of 3 dimensions, like what would this side view look like as a top view? Type thinking. After a long while, my assistant, a woman in her late 30s, took me aside and pointed out all the indicators that the kid had fetal alcohol syndrome. I had no idea. I'll never forget his confused, blank face and my frustration at how someone couldn't think in 3D. I try to be more understanding, sympathetic and patient now. I had a 7th grader that was the biggest, happiest doofus. He actually was pretty intelligent, but he was such an open book and didn't put much effort into school that he came across as a bit of a fool. Other teachers treated him like a nuisance because he definitely *was* a distraction to other kids. He didn't try to be disruptive, he just was. but he lit up the room with positive energy and was genuinely happy to enjoy every moment of being alive. I didn't understand how his prior teachers were annoyed by him, because he genuinely was a ray of sunshine, and he made everyone a little happier by being in his presence. He was always smiling, always entertained by life, and it was contagious, kind of like a human golden retriever. I helped him learn how to set school-related goals for himself and take more of an interest in the things we studied, and he was so proud of earning his first A in my class. The reason I will never forget him is because I wasn't yet a mother when I taught him, and I decided then that if I ever have kids, I hope they will be as happy as Oscar is. I would try to encourage their sense of wonder and fun above all else. One of my students told me as a child she wanted to grow up to be a strawberry and then cried when she realized she couldn't because she was a human being. Very sweet girl. The one who told me, "You really make me think." We are friends to this day and have the best conversations. It's the highest compliment for a teacher.